Welcome to the Simpler Business Podcast, where we talk about ways to do what you love and serve your people in a way that brings you income and freedom. I'm your host, Marissa Roberts. Join me as I chat with my favorite entrepreneurs about how they simplify their biz so that you can simplify yours. Two struggle points I see over and over again from business owners are decision-making and data. Decision-making for business owners brings up a lot of stuff, starting with the sheer amount of decisions we have to make every day. Big ones and little ones, and then there's the emotional attachment we have to the decisions that we make as well. You know, it's like, what if I go this way and something bad happens? Or what if I make this decision and something doesn't work out? Or what if we freeze and don't make a decision at all and then we miss out on something amazing? It's a bit of a mind bender. And data is the other area that I find we tend to struggle with as business owners. If you are not naturally a numbers person, you tend to stick your head in the sand because when you don't know your numbers, it feels really scary to look at them. But what most business owners don't realize is that data can actually free you up emotionally from the decisions that you're making in your business. So it can actually take the pressure off when you understand the numbers and the data and everything related to your business. And my guest today is going to walk us through how to use data to help you make intuitive decisions confidently. Christine Tyler Pell founded COO Inc. after realizing that the business owners in her life were very uncomfortable with math and data. Now she teaches creative consultants, coaches, and designers how to leverage their data and their unique power to build the businesses of their dreams, easily delegating all the work that drains them while consistently delighting their clients. As a former accountant, it's a passion of Christine's to help business owners look at their numbers. A lot of her clients are actually afraid of them, so you're not alone if you are too, but it's all there to help you, and she wants to make that a little easier. So I am very excited to have Christine on the show. Welcome, Christine.
Thank you. I'm so glad to be here.
I'm so glad you're here. I'm going to be honest. I gave that example, like all of us feel like numbers are scary because a lot of people do say that to me. I don't want to look at my numbers because I'm scared of them. But actually, I was exactly that person. Personal and business. I was the sort,
Yeah.
6 years ago, I was the person who was like just winging it with everything. I didn't want to know if I was in debt in my personal life or how much. I didn't want to know if I was actually doing well in the business because I was like, if it's not doing well, then I'll be stressed about it and then it'll go badly. But, if it is doing well, then we'll just keep going. It was like this real winging it sort of thing. And it was just terrible, terrible. Do you do
Yeah.
that a
Can
lot?
I can I ask what was the turning point for you?
A friend of mine. So one of my friends, Denise, she's a money mindset mentor. And one day I remember she just said to me, you just need to get on board with the fact that if you know your numbers, once you actually know them, they're not scary anymore because your brain will flip to plan making mode in what to do with those numbers. She's like, you just have to trust it, get to know the numbers and go from there. And she was right. She was right. When I did, I was like, oh, it's actually a lot better than I thought.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
it's so great that you have a friend that could give you that guidance.
Imagine if I'd never met her. Imagine if our listeners had never had never listened to this episode. I just feel like we're doing so much good right now just by having this chat.
I'm basically Mother Teresa.
Exactly. It's a selfless thing. We're helping other people. But yeah, it's a real thing. I get a lot of people saying they have that same worry. Like, they don't, okay, so they're worried what the numbers will be, what the data will show in their business, but they're also worried that whatever they see won't be good enough. So it's like imposter syndrome is sneaking in there as well. Do you see that happen on a regular basis with your clients?
Yeah, I think that there's a lot of a combination of wanting to stick their head in the sand so they just won't know how bad it is um and then there's the two other parts are that if they're worried that if there is enough money or that if they see that they are doing well, they don't trust themselves to spend it wisely. They're like, I'm just gonna, if there's a surplus,
I'm
I'm
going to
gonna
blow
blow it on something stupid. And then the third thing is just such a fear and discomfort around all things related to math and data, like from the jump. I grew up in such a a math positive household. So even though I'm the oldest of all girls, and both of our parents are just total math nerds. So we never got the message that it wasn't for us. And I just always loved math. So when I grew up and realized that all the other women were like,
Yeah.
no, not only am I not interested, I am viscerally uncomfortable with the fact that you're even bringing this up.
Yeah, it really is head in the sand. And a lot of people, if you said to them, are you comfortable with the data in your business? I
Hmm.
reckon a lot of people would say, what do you mean when you say data? Right?
Yeah, totally. And I know that was one of your questions was
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I was
I'm
going to
trying
ask
to
you
figure out which
first,
one of your questions that was that you
no,
said.
you're right. It is. The first question was going to be, what sort of data should we be looking at? Oh, let's jump straight into that.
That was an accident.
Let's just go. Yeah.
So I tend to focus on three areas of business: finance, operations, and leadership. So
Mhm.
sort of all the behind the scenes stuff. Most of my clients are really good at marketing. They're really good at sales. They know how to get clients, but they don't know necessarily how to serve all the clients that they get at the level that they would like to, and they don't know how to delegate, and then they don't know how to sort of plan for their future financially. So on the finance side, I want people to start looking at their balance sheet and their income statement. And an income statement can also be called a profit and loss statement.
Oh, yeah.
And then they should be looking at those numbers at least monthly, or at the very, very least quarterly. And if you're in any kind of accounting platform, most people are in QuickBooks. You can just run those reports, and just learning how to run them and just looking at them will start to get you a sense of comfort.
Mhm.
And then you can start to see seasonality. So you can start to see, how the trends in when the sales and the expenses hit. So then you can start to see and expect, oh, right, this is the time of year when this happens. So I know that next quarter I'm probably going to see this come through. So you can also sort of emotionally prepare for those fluctuations as you start to build a comfort with that, with just looking at those reports and not even doing anything with them.
Mhm.
And then on the operations side, I think there's so much opportunity for entrepreneurs and small growing business owners to utilize things like customer success scorecards, and to sort of check in with their customers. You get those really annoying forms when you go to like therapists and they're like, how many days have you cried? You're like, all the days, none of the days.
Yeah.
You can do those sort of scales with your clients if you come up with like the questions that really get at their satisfaction and how they're feeling, and then just check in with them. You don't have to send it cold. You can just, you want to touch base with your clients anyway. So you can just sort of ask those questions and gauge how they're doing and see, the trends in how they're feeling about your services, and like where there might be sticking points. The other thing about sticking points is if you map out your workflows, that's something that I find so many people avoid mapping the workflows. They don't want to sit
They
down
just
and
want to
do it.
wing
They
it.
don't want to document any processes. But if you start mapping your workflows and then linking the amount of time that each of the tasks take, and include how much you procrastinate, like, note this is a thing that I will not do for a week, or I won't do till the very last second. And note those times, because again, time is a data point. So if you can see where those sticking points are, there's so much opportunity to clean those up, or delegate, or change how you're doing things to make things faster and easier.
Oh my gosh, I feel like you were speaking to me just then because I am a person who, yeah, I have systemized and documented some of my processes, and I'm like, oh, I'm winning at life. And then I've just realized I have never taken the time to go, how long does it take and how much do I procrastinate? And let me tell you, it always takes longer than I think it's going to every month when I sit down to
Yeah.
do a particular process. And I always leave it right till the end of the time I have available. I really should be putting that into the process. I really should be allowing for that. And I never thought of it
It's
until you said it.
Well, and it's so helpful. And, sometimes having that, I know my mind works best when I'm at that last minute adrenaline. So, if that's how you operate, that's fine. But if it's a procrastination because you're feeling dread or it just feels heavy, that's different. Then something needs to change. If
Something to
it's just
delegate.
like, I can get that done really fast and I'll just do it all at one time, that's fine. So sort of knowing yourself and learning when things are a problem and when that's just how your unique business operates. Those are interesting things to start to discover as you start to track.
Yeah.
And then the leadership piece is really similar to the ops piece from a data standpoint because you want to do check-ins with your team members. And that could be, when I say team, I mean like permanent employees, part-time or full-time. I mean contractors or vendors. Literally anybody that you're asking to help you with your business is a part of your team.
Yeah.
And so you want to check in with them and make sure that you're asking the same couple of questions every time and tracking those answers so that you can see their trends and your trends and how you're interacting and start to get a better sense of, when we talked about this, then when we talked about X, then Y happened. And you can start to see patterns more clearly that way.
That's so clever because I never, oh, sorry, everybody. If you can hear my dogs barking, somebody's walking their own dog in front of my house. All right. So yeah, I think it's really interesting too because when we think of data, when you just broke those three levels down, so the financials and the operations and the leadership never occurred to me when it came to data. I feel like all of us are kind of not so much that we're winging it in our business, but we've developed all the things that we're doing and it's inside our head. And we've never really taken the time to think strategically about that information and to really forecast what we could do with that going forward that could make our life easier. So when you
Mhm.
explained that just then, I had all these big aha moments like, oh, there's so much I really could be doing that with that information that never even occurred to me. And I bet I'm not the only one listening today that's had that
I
moment.
mean, well, and I think that I know so many people who started their own businesses because they hated corporate life.
Mhm.
And I'm kind of an anomaly because I loved corporate life. I love meetings. I love doing all the big team strategy stuff. And one thing that I especially loved that I bring to my clients who now, are managing people and are just they hire people that they love. They love the people that they found, but they also don't know how to vet people's skills and they don't know which skills are actually the most important for their business. They just hire somebody that they like because their emotions say, I love them, I can trust them. And trustworthiness does not build a huge, the business that you're dreaming of.
Yeah.
So another thing that actually we are going to talk about more is to figure out the pieces of your business that are the most important. And what you want to look for are the gaps in those tasks that you find heavy
Mhm.
and that are really important to your long-term vision, and look for the competencies in those skills and not necessarily. You want to be clear on which of those is the peak priority.
Yeah.
You want to have like 3 to 5 really top priority competencies so that, if you have writes really good emails, like is really good in written communication, maybe that's somewhere on your wants list. But if somebody's amazing at that and you like them, you can accidentally start to let that have a much higher weight. And all of a sudden, their capabilities with the platform that you want to use are like really low. And now you're training them. And that's not why you hired them.
Yeah. And then it doesn't become a time saver or an effort saver. You end up doing a lot more work and paying for
Hmm.
it at the same time. And I think that's where
Yeah.
a lot of businesses can get into trouble then. It's such a natural thing, though, to hire based on personality. And I think we all have this
Yeah.
habit of liking people who also have things in common with us. So it's like we're just hiring a bunch of people that are the same as us. Of course,
Yeah.
no one's going to go anywhere because we don't have skills that kind of fill each other's gaps. So, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, that's
Yes, absolutely. And that's another way also, that's one of the major culprits of having really homogenous workplaces and how a lot of small businesses get into hot water because then, they get to a certain point where now there's public scrutiny and
mm.
people are like, why do you all look the same? Why do you have the
Why is there
least
no diversity?
diverse team I've ever seen?
Yeah,
Because they're just you're hiring the people who call out to your heart. Your heart, it called like calls to like.
yeah,
This is why mentorships, powerful white men mentor other powerful white men. So unless they're forced to look for just like the competencies and not just who looks like them
yeah.
and who they're like, oh, you remind me of me,
Yeah,
that's how
so true.
that's how we branch out.
Yeah, that's such a good point. And I think it's easier to spot now. You can really see it clear as day when that's happening in a company. And no
Yeah.
one, I don't think anyone does it on purpose, but it's really that, it's kind of it's that integrated already. Like it's people don't realize, but when they take a step back, it's very easy to spot. So
Yeah.
if we're talking in terms of intuition then, and intuition and data working together to help you make decisions for your business, what are some good examples then that you can share of that happening? Because for me, I love the concept of intuition and I have no skill whatever when it comes to data. So it's hard for me to put the two together. So yeah, I'm really excited to hear about that.
This is my favorite. It is my favorite thing. I call it turning feelings into numbers.
Ooh.
So I love to, which one do I want to talk about first? So I think one thing that I see a lot is really intuitive business owners who will be like, I had this, like, my intuition is telling me I need to do this today or this. And you have to sort of weigh, is this your beautiful intuition or is this avoiding the very hard work that you've created for yourself that is important to your existing business? Like, are we intuiting or are we dissociating?
Yeah. Are you in flow
And
or procrastinating? Yeah.
right. Is this a crutch to avoid your work? Um, and it can be really hard to tell. So what I love to do, I actually invented this method when was uh, I was so mad at my husband, and so I came up with this. It's this thing that I call the values audit, and it's this process where you list your values. You just like brain dump your values. You can start with like a journaling exercise to sort of get your mind into the right headspace of thinking about like your ideal life, your perfect day, and like find words that jump out at you where you can go in cold.
Mhm.
You list your values. You sort of think about for each one, what would it look like if I were like the Beyonce of this value? So if education is my value, what does that mean? If I'm truly living with education as my top value, what am I doing? And so you try to paint a picture for, if not all the values that you listed, then at least like the ones that are calling out to you the most. And then you use those visions to help decide your top 3 to 5 values. And your personal values, especially in the businesses that I serve, your personal values and your business values tend to be the same. I mean, most people who start their own businesses and go into entrepreneurship are starting heart forward businesses.
Yeah, that's
So, um, and like if you were in a larger business, you would have, your leadership team or maybe the whole company do this also imagining the business, having the current products and mission in mind to do this. But you go through and sort of flesh out those values and you force rank them. So you know which one is like the number one. Like everything else, if we don't do this, everything else is meaningless. And then, you have to go 1, 2, 3, up to 5. And then you come up with your vision for each one. Maybe you're not going to get to the Beyonce version. Maybe you get, I don't even want to say Nickelback. Let's just, somebody else,
yeah.
just a lesser artist. And so you come up with your 5-year plan, depending on where you are in your journey, it could be 1, 3, 5, 10 years. You come up with your goal and you come up with the SMART goal that ladders up to that vision, for that value. And you you use you use those SMART goals to make your long-term strategic plan. And then as you have these intuitive hits, pop up, you can ask yourself yes or no questions based on those values. Does this move me closer to or further away from this vision and this value? And if you can say yes for at least half the values for that one thing, then all right, let's put it on the roadmap. Let's explore it. But if it's like maybe one value, or you're like really trying to force it, then okay, maybe that's a personal side project, but that's not part of this business.
Yeah.
So things like that are what come up the most. I ask my clients like which tasks feel heavy to you, again with like the procrastinating, and which tasks feel really easy to you, and that can help also to prioritize, because a lot of times they'll try to just push through and say like I have all these things to do, I have to do them, it's non-negotiable. And I always want to take a step back and say, well, if it makes you feel like you're going to die, then maybe it's not as non-negotiable as you think. Like, is this a thing where you're immediately going to be fined a bunch of money, or like you're going to seriously let down a current client? Because otherwise,
Yeah.
I think we can find another way to make this happen.
That's so true. I say to people all the time, like if you're not enjoying it, that's a sign to systemize or automate or delegate or outsource it in some way. For me, it was
Yeah.
bookkeeping. Oh, bookkeeping was, oh my gosh, it was just, I was cranky all the time on bookkeeping days. Like, and my husband was like, didn't you start your business so you could do what you love? I'm like, yes, I did, but I didn't know I had to do bookkeeping. Yeah. Anyway, that's a bit of a pathway.
Spouses, man, we could have a whole episode just on spouses and their dumb, unhelpful questions.
Yeah. But I can see then how tuning into, tapping into your data as you're tuning into your vision is quite a good partnership, really, because otherwise you're going to float off on totally different tangents that keep you busy and sometimes
Mhm.
happy, but don't actually grow your business. They don't actually bring in sales or grow your reach or help you scale. And that's the important stuff that we need to kind of lock in order to then have more freedom and more fun in the end anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. I love, and the clarity it brings is just, ugh,
Yeah.
it's just beautiful. I love it. If you're only listening, I just did like a chef's kiss thing.
Yeah. So then where do you think people make mistakes with their data? Are there places that they go wrong, trends that you see where people are going wrong with how they're approaching reading their data and acting on it?
Yeah, I think that, I mean, the cardinal sin is avoiding it altogether. And then I think the second thing that I see, especially in my side of things and like the back office side, is that they really just look at it's like plus and minus, the end. We have like peaked at addition and subtraction. And then I show up and I'm like, but what if we could like create a valuation for your happiness? And what if we could have like a multiplier for which tasks are going to make you feel the best and delight your clients the most? And let's look at percentages and rankings. And, you know, um, so I think it's really, the problem is that unless you're the person who looks for opportunities to leverage data, you're not going to do it.
Mm. Yeah, that's true.
Um, and yeah, and I think going back to the just avoiding things, the more you avoid it, the harder it is to get started. It starts to become like this big scary monster. So it's really important, I think, to just to bite the bullet. I don't like to use the word just because I don't like to minimize how difficult a thing is for people. Um, but it is so I will say instead that if you need support, get support
Mm.
and make it a priority to start looking at the numbers so that you can avoid or, kill the scary monster.
Yeah. And I think too, if you look at the numbers once, that's one thing. But if you start to do it on a regular basis, you get more confident every time, don't you? Because you start to spot things that you might not have spot before, or understand things a little bit better, or, even just know how to log in and find the information, which is much
Yeah.
easier after you've done it a couple of times. And so you don't feel silly anymore. Then you feel like you have more control over what's happening in your business because that awareness grows over time. So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So then what does it look like from a higher level? So if you've got a business who's in touch with their data and they're making intuitive decisions related to their data, do you see that it's I guess what do you notice as the expert?
I think the main thing is that what I see in most companies is they're either wildly creative and passionate and intuitive, or they're extremely data driven. And I don't really see the two coming together. I know a lot of money mindset people who are very good at what they do, but then coming up with like the actual business strategy and financial forecasts, those kinds of things aren't really part of their offer suite. And having a CFO who also is like, let's talk about tarot and tell me how you're feeling. Let's start the meeting with how you're feeling is not typical. Um, so for those business owners who are really creative and intuitive, what I tend to see is that they have so many ideas,
Mm.
and it ends up being this like overwhelming noise. And ironically, I feel it too. I have so many ideas all the time, but when it's other people's ideas, I can like sift through it so easily and start categorizing and being like, okay, well, which thing, like, let me ask some questions to figure out which of these is like having the strongest pull for you. Um, so, these people are having all these ideas. They're able to visualize every path and all the different, because it's not just the ideas. I mean, I'm sure it's not, you maybe have 10 ideas, but then for each of those ideas, there's 1,000 different paths
Yeah.
to achieving those ideas coming to fruition. So using the numbers in this way, I think really adds a level of certainty because there's no one best answer. And I think that's one of the things that people who avoid math seem to feel like there's a yes and there's a no, and I'm going to be the no matter what it is. I'm going to be wrong and I'm going to be in trouble. And that's really not the case, at least not the way I do things. You just want clarity about what the next best step for you is right now. And then you know maybe that step leads you to throw out your values audit and start from scratch. Maybe now we're coming up with something completely different, but at that point then we're just adjusting, we're just making little changes. It's not like it feels like a huge overhaul to you, but to me I'm like, all right, we're
Tweaks,
just we're
yeah.
just remapping a little bit, but this is fine. So it's really having that certainty. And I always think about, going to, well, you're in Australia, you don't have Thanksgiving dinner, but if you go to a holiday dinner where you have, really annoying relatives, I have like great uncles who like run insurance companies. They're the kind of people who want you to know banking terms, and they want you to show up. If you're going to talk about a business, you better have come with your business plan. So I always think about, showing up to that room or showing up to a business meeting where you're asking for a loan or
Mm.
pitching to a really big client that felt a few years ago like something you could never approach, but walking into those rooms and feeling like you deserve to be there and you know what you're talking about.
Yeah, it does. And that has such a big effect on everything. I think for me, it's kind of like data is the difference between me hoping for something to happen and me being able to forecast if something's going to happen. And I think there's so much more confidence when I can forecast what I'm expecting to happen in terms of, sales and results and growth and that sort of thing, as opposed to just this would be very nice to have, and then that's it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
It
and I
gives you
think
control.
if you make, I'm sorry, I couldn't hear what you said.
Yeah, no, I was just saying having a bit more control, that kind of gives you a bit more confidence. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, a lot of times if you take that next best step, if you've based it entirely on intuition and your feelings, and you have like a mood shift, all of a sudden you're a week into your new plan and you're like, what have I done? I
Mhm.
hate this. I hate everything. But if you have the numbers, you can look at them and say, like, okay, okay, I see what we're doing here. And I see how we committed to like this length of time or like this many hours of trying it or this many times we are gonna make this attempt before calling it. And we can't call it until, we've had this many reviews. And
Mm.
it does help to like you said, bolster the confidence and help keep you feeling grounded.
Yeah, that's staying power. I can already think about some of the conversations I've had with clients where they're like, everyone's had that feeling of social media, for example. Oh, what social media platform should we be on? What strategy should we use? I've had clients that want to jump strategies a month in, oh, we haven't seen any growth here on TikTok, so we're going to go and switch over to Instagram. Oh, well, Instagram's not doing anything. I hear Facebook's doing really well. And it's like that shiny object syndrome. And they don't actually take enough time to commit to one strategy long enough to actually see it starting to work. Whereas I feel like when we sit down and we go, now, hang on a minute, look at the numbers. In the last 30 days, we've seen this, this, and this. And if we keep going at that level, we're going to see this, this, and this. And it's that conversation that makes them go, okay, we'll keep going as is, which in the long run gives them much better results, has much less effort needed, much less learning required. It's easier to manage a project. So yeah, already I can see, like, even just from that one topic, how that can be so much more effective.
Yeah. Well, and it's crazy because a lot of my clients are in the field of marketing. So they can use marketing analytics and they'll give the exact same advice to their own clients. But when it's about anything in the back office or anything, especially finance, they're just like, oh my God, oh my God, no, 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 no,
Yeah.
no.
And sometimes we're too close in our own business. We need
Yeah,
that help from somebody who's that step back that can look big picture for us because we're so emotionally invested in what we do. Yeah.
yeah, absolutely.
Oh my gosh, this has been such a nice conversation because I feel like A, I'm seen, I've been heard as somebody who's struggled with that myself. And B, I think there's a lot of people out there who have really, data is a scary thing to them. Making decisions is a scary thing. You've found a way to really bring the two together so that the pressure is off. They can be a little bit more confident. They don't have to be worried about making bad decisions anymore because they've got real things to back up why they're going to do something. And I think that gives you so much more freedom as well. Which in turn gives you more space to be creative in your business. So if you're a creative entrepreneur or a designer or a creative consultant, you don't have to be chained to the computer and talk numbers 24/7. It's just that overall knowledge and awareness of what to do with what you have that I think is the power. So you have
Yeah.
taught me so much in just half an hour. I'm so glad you were here today. And I know people are
Thank
going to
you.
want more. Oh my God, you've done more for me than I have for you. So yeah. But I know our listeners, they're going to want more from you. So where do you think is the best way for them to find you? Is your website best or socials? What do you prefer with people getting in contact?
Well, if people want my irreverent BS throughout the day, then they should follow me on Instagram at coo.inc. But if they want to check out the whole website and, do a deep dive, get really stalkery, then they should go to cooincorporated.com.
Beautiful. And I know you have a resource that you've created called the Decisions Matrix too. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. So this is one of those things that we do after a values audit. So if you have, your brand values, you can just jump straight in with this. But this is one of those tools that you use for anytime you're stuck trying to make a decision. This is another thing I invented in my marriage because we were trying to buy a car, and my husband is a car guy, and I could not listen to him talk about cars anymore. So I was like, we're listing the criteria, we are giving them weights, and then each car that we drive, we're going to score each of the criteria, and then whatever has the highest score wins. And we're not going to talk about it anymore. I don't care who made the engine. I don't care at all. I just want to feel so comfortable on a road trip and have enough cup holders. That's all.
Totally.
So that is in the decision matrix. Typically, people use it for things like when they're hiring or trying to decide, which vendor or consultant to choose. So again, you want to look at those. What are the key capabilities or tasks, and what other facets matter to my values? Is there an element of like they basically feel like me? Am I going to have my clients talk to them and I need them to be my emissary? Am I looking for somebody who has a robust background in finance? So you create these criteria and then decide how important they are on a scale of 5, and then you fill it out for all of your options, and then whoever scores the highest wins, and then no more thinking, no more dwelling, no more ruminating.
Move on.
Yeah.
I love that. All right. Well, I'm going to make sure that we've got a link in the show notes to that resource and also your website and your Instagram, if that's okay with you. So that way people can find you nice and easy, because we like to keep things easy here.
Yes, please. That'd be great.
Beautiful. All right. Well, this has been fantastic. Thank you for being here and for sharing all of that. You've opened my eyes to a whole new way of looking at things. So I really appreciate it. And I really hope that everybody out there listening today has enjoyed our conversation as much as I have. And yeah, I will see you all in the next episode. I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Simpler Business Podcast. If you did, please subscribe, rate, and review us on Apple Podcasts. There's a link in the show notes to make it nice and easy for you, just the way we like it. If you're ready to simplify and scale your business, you can get started with my free audio class at marissaroberts.com. See you next time.